In January of 2009, I was 420 pounds. I got laid off from a job at that time, and I decided I was gonna do something. You know, and I started with just walking because that's all I could do. I was 420 pounds. I would typically walk about 1.5 miles each day. It was, you know, at that weight, typically about halfway through the walk, I would get to the point where I had such bad shin splints, I would end up at a park bench just crying. It hurt so bad. So in 2009, my goal was just to walk as much as possible. I walked 354 out of the 365 days that year. So I made it a goal. And it's kind of like you set a pattern for yourself. You know, you get a routine. You're used to doing this every day. You know, I had a streak one time where I went 169 days where I just walked. In December of 2009, I decided I wanted to run a little bit. So when I first started running, it was just like that last block to my house, you know, because that's all I could do in the beginning. You know, it would be 1/10 of a mile at most. I did that. I went down to 301 pounds by the end of by December 2009. I dropped to about 240 by the end of 2010. And then actually got down to about 190. I've put on about 20 since then. I mean, hard to maintain it, you know, it's one of those, but I've been around 210, you know, the last couple of years. I haven't really gained any weight the last couple of years. And so I started running in December of 2009. I did my first 5K August of 2010. I just wanted to do something. It was one of those, I mean, up to that point, I'd never done a race. I didn't know what I was doing. I just signed up for, it was here, Washington County Fair 5K down here, and did the 5K, and I kind of caught the race bug. They had a 12K 3 weeks later. So I signed up for the 12K, did the 12K. They had another 5K 3 weeks later, and I'm like, okay, we'll sign up for that 5K. And then I was like, well, I want to try something hard. St. George City offers a triathlon. It's just a sprint. It's Sand Hollow Aquatic Center triathlon, or they had their half marathon. Snow Canyon half marathon, which was in November of that year. And I was like, well, I don't have a bike, so I'll do Snow Canyon half marathon. Got into doing Snow Canyon, did the half marathon. Like I said, I caught the race bug. I did St. George half marathon, you know, the following January. Decided I wanted to do St. George Marathon in 2011. So I did my first St. George Marathon in 2011, and I had that idea in my head I was going to be a marathoner, I was going to be a runner, I was going to be this. So I signed up on a whim for a second marathon in March of 2012. Now, since I lost 200 pounds, I got what's called ITBS, itiral tendon Badner syndrome, which is in the side of your knee. And I lost so much weight, my hips were realigning to adjust to all the weight loss. And it pulled that IT band tight. And it was just sheer agony when it was pulling tight. And so I did a marathon in March of 2012 where I got to mile 21 and I couldn't bend my knee at all. I had a limp the last 5 miles to the finish line. I couldn't run. It was like my leg was locked and I'm walking like this the whole way just to finish, and I was miserable. And I'm like, I never, ever, ever want to run again as long as I live. So, but I don't want to get fat again. So I went and got on Craigslist. I found a $200 road bike, cheap road bike. And I got in and I said, well, bike, you know. And so then I decided, that's when I got into triathlons. I volunteered for the full Ironman here in 2011 and 2012. And then they made the decision in 2012 that they were going to change it into a half Ironman. And I'm like, well, I can do that in a year. I can train for a year and I can do the half Ironman in a year. So I did St. George half Ironman in both 2013 and 2014. And then I've gone on, and you know, my biggest thing is like I literally, like the little kid that just jumped in the pool and taught himself how to swim. And my biggest obstacle in triathlons has been the swim. So I hired Tiffany as a coach to help me to do the swim and help me with that, because I barely make the cutoffs on the swim. So she make, you know, I always joke, as long as I make the swim cutoff, I'm golden. The rest of the race is easy, you know. So we've been working on my swim. I had thought I would do a full Ironman this year. I had looked at Coeur d'Alene. I got into a horrific bike accident last August. Ended up with 51 stitches. I still have a slight scar under my eye. To my face, I broke my hand, separated my shoulder, and so I lost about 4 months of training, so I don't know if I'll be able to do a full Ironman this year. That's still my goal, and that's why I wanted Tiffy to help, because you know that 2.4 mile swim when I'm barely making the cutoff for the half iron kind of scares me. So, you know, I mean, it's all about progress. You know, always moving forward. You know, I went from I barely walk a mile and a half. I mean, barely walk it. I mean, I've done 5 marathons. I've done 4 half Ironman. I've done 34 half marathons. Typically, you know, I did a half marathon last Saturday, in fact. So, I mean, it's just that progress. You know, when you start, you're like, it seems like this huge obstacle you can't overcome. You know, I was 420 pounds. I couldn't walk a mile. You know, I couldn't. I mean, I think I joined a kickball league with my company work in like 2008, and just running that 90 feet to first base left me completely sweaty and, you know, almost hyperventilating. You're just like, and just that 90 feet to first base, you know, in a kickball league. And then, you know, like I said, I've done marathons now. I'm not the biggest marathon fan, and I found I love triathlons. I love biking. I did my first Century ride down here last, you know, 100-mile bike ride last October. I mean, I typically sign up for the marathon every year because everybody I know is doing it, and it's kind of but I mean, triathlons is what I love, and my goal is to do a full Ironman. It might be next year. I'm still looking at some races, possibly in November, if I think I'll be ready by that time.